Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am sitting down with a client with one of my favorite stories of grit, growth, and everything in between. After a deal fell through straight out of residency, Dr. Grant Sievers reached out to our team, and now almost 2 years later, he's running a thriving practice with some powerful lessons to share. If you're thinking about starting a practice, or you're in the thick of it, this episode is packed with honest advice, encouragement, and a few mantras you just won't want to miss. So let's dive in. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if you want to have a great business, the right practice management software is essential. But some can be slow, outdated, and lacking good support. That's why I recommend Gray Finch to all orthodontists. It's the fastest, most reliable, and most secure platform to grow your business and improve your efficiency. It's completely web-based, so you can run your entire practice anywhere and from any device with no servers, no downloads, or hidden fees. They even have the most helpful and responsive support team around. Right now, Gray Finch is giving a $500 discount to our listeners. Visit grayfinch.com/Jill Allen to learn more and see why it's one of the fastest growing providers in America. Grant, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. So I would love it if you would just talk to the audience a little bit about who you are, your journey into orthodontics, and where you started your practice at.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I jump in, I just want to say thanks so much for having me. I just want to take a second and tell you that I really appreciate being here. I know that you've worked with so many docs, and I'm just grateful and humbled that you asked me to be a part of your show. It means a lot to me. But yeah, I'm an orthodontist, but first and foremost, I'm a husband. That's one of my favorite titles that I carry, and a father as well. So we have a little 1-year-old girl that we're starting to chase around the house now, and it's getting super fun. So
it's getting real.
Yeah. Yeah, she's keeping us on our toes for sure. Personally, I like to spend a lot of my time outside. I grew up hunting and fishing and golfing, and I like to try to stay dedicated to fitness, but that ebbs and flows a little bit as well.
As all of us.
Yeah. But no, I was born and raised in central Illinois, really rural Illinois. Most people think Illinois and they're like, oh, Chicago, the big city. I'm over 4 hours away from Chicago, where the corn and the bean fields and the tractors and the combines and everything. So my Illinois looks quite a bit different than Chicago does. But my grandpa actually started a chain of farm supply stores back in the 50s, and all like the tools and pet supplies and clothing and sporting goods. And it's like a one-stop shop for your small communities. So my first job growing up was stacking pallets and moving products in the central warehouse. And it was like 7th grade, and it was 100+ degrees in the warehouse, and you have these big commercial fans blowing. And I realized very young, it's like no matter how many boxes I stack or how much product I move, I'm still making $5 an hour. And that just isn't gonna that's not a great recipe for me. I moved on to mowing and road work as I got older through high school and college, and the pay was a little bit better, but the temperature was the same. So I decided to do something else. But in all seriousness, I always wanted to be a doctor growing up, and I thought that it was just a very respectable profession. And we actually had a family friend that was a general dentist. And he was one of my dad's buddies as well. And he invited me when I was in high school to come shadow his practice. And I thought, man, this is neat. I could see myself doing this. He actually got me in touch with the local orthodontist as well as the oral surgeon. And so he really did a great job. Check this out and check this out. And now after all those experiences, I really thought that dentistry was great for me because it allowed me to combine my passion for business and owning my own business like my family did for so long, as well as the healthcare medical doctor career that I wanted to pursue.
I love that. Isn't it interesting? What a blessing to have had a mentor like that dentist take you in under his wing and at least expose you to all of the different areas to then allow you to have that passion or that desire, like, I can see myself doing this. Now, this is better than that $5 an hour.
Yeah, he really saved me there. No, it was an absolute blessing. Of course, I work with him now. He actually refers me patients. It's just like a full circle type of thing.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
how cool for him, how cool for you. So,
Right.
what I want to do is let's talk about your journey into owning your own practice. And the reason, Grant, I wanted you to be on Hey Docs today for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons is I think you have such a great story. And again, you probably remember way back when you were getting out of school and thinking, what am I going to do? And what's the direction I'm going to take? And it's a little bit scary, right? You don't know what's the right direction. You hear from peers, you should do one thing. You hear from another group, you should do another. And so I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just sharing your story with us and what that looked like starting out in the beginning, because you, like many doctors that I talked to, had a deal that you thought was going in one direction, and
Yeah.
unfortunately it falls through right out of residency, and then it leaves you going, shoot, what do I do?
Right.
What do I do
Right.
now?
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that, and then that progression into, I think I'm going to do a startup, and I think I'm going to call Jill.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And halfway through residency or so, you start looking for job opportunities, or at least that's where I was. I was in a 30-month program. So I would say a year and a half in or so. Going back to my rural roots in Illinois, I knew I wanted to be close to family. I didn't have to be in my hometown, but we have a lot going on here with lots of family and friends and everything. And it's just the area that I wanted to be in. But because it's not very densely populated, there are not very many opportunities for orthodontists, or at least I should say senior docs hiring or selling or an associate position or something like that. So I contacted a doctor who owned a practice about an hour from my hometown, and he was really excited to bring me in and thought it was a great deal. And he was also getting to retirement age for sure.
Mhm.
And he was thinking about maybe getting one foot out the door. And so we had dinner, we had a great thing worked out, and it ended up eventually falling through. But yeah, I thought I had this perfect plan, right? It's like you spend like your last year of residency, like just waiting to start, open the doors, and you're finally, after your 11 years of school or college or whatever, you're going to get a paycheck. And our deal was I was going to associate with him for 6 months, and then I was going to buy the practice, and then he was going to work back for me for 6 months. And 6 months into my 6 months associateship, he handed me a letter with basically two sentences on it that said he wasn't going to sell his practice, and therefore I was being terminated.
Wow.
I was like, yeah.
About a punch in the gut.
Yeah. We had all the legal documents drawn up. We had practice evaluations completed. We had leases ready to go. He had a retirement party that had over 100 people there, basically passing the torch to me, saying that I was going to carry on the practice, and everybody was in good hands. And yeah, I still can't give you a great reason as to why he had a change of heart, but that's how you and I met. And I never really questioned pausing. I was just like, okay, I've been here for 6 months. I know these general dentists. I know this location needs an orthodontist. So I just knew I was going to stay in town and start my own practice. The whole situation lit this fire in me. So I was like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Yeah.
Pull up
Right.
those boots and we're going.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I even remember our early discussions together with you where I was like, all right, I'm going to have my doors open in 6 or 8 weeks, and I'm going to start seeing patients and doing all that stuff. And you were like, well, we got to get our ducks in a row here. So I just knew I had the drive and the passion, and of course the business background that we already talked about. I knew all the dentists in town. My wife and I had just bought a new home, right? So it's like we had we had moved into this home that I thought I was going to have this income and own this practice, and then I am jobless basically overnight.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a scary situation, but I knew that I didn't come this far to only come this far, and I wasn't going to let his decision deter me from really what I had worked so hard for. During that transition period in my associateship, I was working with NDP and Kane Waters as a transition, and I basically had to email him or call him up and say, hey, we're at the 11th hour here, and this whole thing just blew up. And they weren't super excited about doing the startup thing. They were like, sorry, that isn't really. And I was like, what do I do? And they were like, we have this friend, Jill Allen. So I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So that's how you and I hit it off. Yep.
Yeah.
But I do think one of the most important aspects of this whole thing is the location, because there was just such a need for another orthodontist, or at least a new orthodontist in this area to bring new energy and things like that. And it was so good through my eyes that I'm like, okay, I can't miss this opportunity, because I didn't want somebody else to come in, or so I knew I just had to start my own practice and get the ball rolling as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Luckily, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so let's just talk about that. So you make this decision, it falls through, you have oh my goodness, I got to pivot here. And you knew that the area that you were in would be a good location. And so as you were making those decisions, reaching out to me, moving forward, I've got to imagine some of what's going through your head is like, all right, how am I going to financially do this? This is not
Right.
what I was mentally prepared for. Now,
Yep.
talk about a true pivot. And I don't got a lot of time. I got a new house. All of these, if I remember right, at that point you weren't married yet. Like we were in
Yep.
fiance stage, maybe.
Yep.
So we got like all of these things that you thought your life is going in one direction.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about that first year. So you make the decision, you move forward. Walk us through what that was for you, just from a mental standpoint to, all right, I'm doing this, deciding on a location, because that was a big deal when
Yeah.
you made that decision. Do I lease? Do I buy? What does that look like? Do you mind just walking us through that a little bit?
Yeah. When I say I didn't really pause, I was like, I think I left the office that day with that letter in my hand, and I was on Zillow looking for, okay, how am I gonna do this? And there wasn't any good locations available. And so that was my first thought, was like, okay, we got to find a place, lease a space, maybe we buy a space. And luckily I had a general dentist who had just heard what had happened reach out to me, and he owned a commercial building with multiple suites in it. And he said, hey, I have room for you if you want to work out of my general dental office, or we could work out something where you make your own space. And long story short, him and I just got to talking, and he said he was ready to sell his dental practice, and he knew that I could be the right fit to buy the whole building. So that's what ended up happening, was that I bought his building as well, and then leased his suite back to him. And then I was able to have my own suite as well. So it was just like an absolute blessing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are the chances? And I guess I say this because for anybody who's listening, like the things that seem like such a punch in the gut, where you're just
Right.
feeling so defeated, really a lot of times it can be the catalyst to some really great things happening if you can just take that energy and redistribute it and move it in a different direction. And I know, Grant, that's what you were able to do in your first year. And I'm wondering if you can just talk to us, because you didn't just be like, okay, I'm switching and I'll limp along in that first
Yeah.
year. You went into that first year like the world's on fire and
Yeah.
I'm going to make an impression.
Yeah. Looking back on it, I'm really happy the way everything worked out. But knowing the work and the back end that I was putting into it, I'm just sitting here scratching my head like, what was my wife going through at that point in time, when I was just researching and talking about loans and buying supplies and buying this building, or am I leasing the building, or doing research, trying to find the perfect location. And one of the toughest spots for me was trying to find a job while I was doing this legwork for my startup, as it's super crucial to have a source of income as you're working on this startup. And being in rural Illinois, there wasn't a job available for me for at least 2 to 3 hours away. I took an associate position about 12 to 14 days a month, and it was 3 hours away. So my wife and I would pack our bags every Sunday night, or I guess my fiance at the time. Okay. We would pack our bags every Sunday night. We would go down there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I would work for 3 days, and then we'd come back here on Thursday. And the next few days would be spent figuring out the logistics of the startup and working towards bank loans and getting the location ready to go and starting working on the office and ordering supplies. And it was a full-time job for a while.
Sexy side of the business that we just got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So you make it through. If we get these, and again, I think even just hearing about and remembering you having to get that associateship job, that really disrupted your life. It was not an easy, and I've had a lot of docs that have had to do this where depending upon where they're starting their practice, or unfortunately, many docs who have associateship jobs, and the minute they find out that they're doing a startup, they just cut their position and now they're floundering looking for somewhere to go. So talk about just the stress of doing a startup, which we all know is stressful, but add
Right.
on taking your life and spending it 3 to 4 days in another part of the state or whatnot, just to go work there, to come back, like all of that. So as your first year went on, let's talk about, you get the doors open. Just what was that year like for you as you got into, all right, this is for real. We're doing this. Doors are
Right.
opening. We got the practice ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really mind blowing at how fast everything kind of ignited and took off. I had my office phone routed to my cell phone for a while. And so we were getting these phone calls when I was at my associate position, and people would leave me voicemails like, I remember you from the other practice and I'd like to get my son in for an exam, and when do we start? And it was these things, you know how construction goes and everything like that, but it's like, we'll see you in August. And then I'd have to call them back. We'll scratch that. We'll see you in September. Scratch that.
Yep.
But we ended up having a list of 30 or 40 people that needed exams that we had booked and scheduled and ready to go. So it was really great. I hired a treatment coordinator right away. I know that some people don't always do that, but I knew I could handle everything in the back of the house if she would handle everything in the front of the house. And
Yep.
so she was doing all my new patient exams with me, doing the contracts, answering the phones. Very quickly, I moved my office number to her cell phone instead of my cell phone. And she was just from day one, what an absolute lifesaver. She still works for me full time, my office manager, treatment coordinator, Nicole, and it would have been a completely different story without her. I know that. I guess that kind of brings me to delegating tasks, right? It's super important to know between an associateship that you may be working and then your startup, you may not be able to handle all tasks. Having that good team and training them correctly and then just setting them free, right? They are a crucial aspect of this entire thing.
Yeah. And I think you're so right to point that out. And it's a hard thing, right? As a doctor and as a new business owner, I think we so desperately want to hold on to everything because it's almost like you feel out of control a little bit. And that is
Right.
the one control you have, is if you're holding on to everything. But there is absolutely no way, I believe, you could have had the growth that you had in your first year to have had such a big year had you had not been able to trust a team member with crucial things where you would have become the sticking point to your own growth in that first year if you were not able to delegate like you did.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree. Just finding that right person that fits what you're trying to do and that somebody that you can trust, because I would have for sure been the bottleneck between my time at the associateship and driving back and forth and being out of town and things like that. There are fires that happen in the practice that I don't even know about because she puts them out and then tells me about them later. You know what I mean? And those are the kind of people that you have to find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, it's Jill. I am so excited to finally share something I've been working on behind the scenes. I've partnered with the amazing team at OrthoFi to create a brand new event designed specifically for early stage orthodontic practices. It's called Start to Strength, and it's happening October 23rd through the 25th at the beautiful Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center in Denver, Colorado. We'll be sharing some of my top strategies for building a solid foundation, scaling smart, and avoiding the costly mistakes I see too many practices make in their early years. We're intentionally keeping this event small with limited seats so it feels intimate, focused, and packed with real value. As a Hey Docs listener, you'll get $50 off your registration with the code HeyDocs. So click the registration link in the show notes to register now. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite. Because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
So let's jump forward. Now that you're 2 years in, you made it through that first year. You had a killer first year. You were one of my top producing docs in the year. Like you did excellent in that first year. As you have made it through and got into year 2 now, what are like maybe some of the bigger mind shifts that you've had or experienced since you first opened?
Yeah, so I think we definitely just touched on one of them, which is delegation, right? We all think that we do the best at what it is that we're doing, and we don't want to let go of those tasks. But like I said, you just have to trust people. You have to find them, you have to train them, you have to trust them, and then don't hover. They'll figure it out. If they just be an open book, let them know if you need anything. If something comes up that you don't know how to handle, let me know. I'm happy to always be here and communicate with you, but I'm going to let you fly. Just report back if you need to. And it's a huge burnout can happen so easily, right? So it's like you have to be able, you can't manage everything. So you have to be able to give it your all when you're here. And if you're taking on those tasks that you could pass off to somebody else, you'll just have much more free headspace to tackle the tasks that you really should be tackling.
Yeah.
The other one, I guess I would say, is it's hard for probably orthodontists to admit, but perfection, right? It's like we're always trying to achieve perfection. Everything has to go perfect. Everything has to go just how we want it. It has to go our way. We have to get this A plus. And it's just, frankly, it's not realistic. People are going to break brackets. You're going to have emergencies. You're going to have comfort visits. You're going to get those kids that don't brush their teeth and end up with white spot lesions. You're going to have these non-ideal finishes. And it was really tough for me to wrap my head around this because I specifically remember before we had seen a patient, I'm like, I'm not going to let this stuff happen to me. Yep. We're going to be in. And it happens. It happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. It just, things like that are going to come across your plate. And all you can do is your absolute best and then just learn along the way and try to prevent them from happening again in the future. But I'm really not saying slack on your work. You don't want to have that's a good enough mentality. But life happens, and there are things as orthodontists that we just are out of our control. Yeah, and that was hard. That was hard for me to grasp.
That's some sage wisdom right there, and that is you're going to have to hold on to that for your entire career because that is the truth. Like life happens, and there are just things that are out of your control, and no matter what you do, you just can't control the things that are going to happen. So I know as you have gone through your last 2 years and even prior to when you started, I think you had a vision of how you were going to do things. But I know especially in the last couple of years, you've been really intentional, I believe, in like everything that you have wanted to do, from setting your values to the culture in your practice to managing your social media and referrals. And these are all I'm going to say it again, these are not necessarily the things we're like, oh, I want to get into business to do this. Right. These are things that we just have to do in business. But what would you say are a few things that you did early on to make that impact and then be able to build on that as you've been going through the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a super cliche answer, but to me, it's just you have to be yourself, right? And that's something completely different to everybody. Everyone is going to be their own individual. I just feel like there's such a massive online presence now with social media and these trends, TikTok, and you can't put on this fake show for your whole career. So people are going to figure out exactly who you are and what you stand for. And if you're just genuinely you from the beginning, you don't have to worry about any of that. And I think that you have to hire a team that shares your same thoughts and your same culture and your same values. And everybody needs to be rowing the boat in the same direction because that's, what's going to help you succeed and achieve those goals. And I don't ever do anything just because I see it online. You know what I mean? It's like there's some awesome people that do awesome things online, and I'm really jealous of those people that have the reels and the TikToks, but it's just not me. Like, you guys rock the pink jackets. I wouldn't look so good in a pink jacket. I wear like the Columbia fishing shirts and the golf shirts, right? That's me.
Yep.
That's me. So you just have to genuinely be you, I think, is the best advice that I could give somebody. It's at the end of the day, it's really your attitude and your passion and the care that you deliver that's going to help people remember you. And that's going to be your brand. It's not going to be this really cute mission statement that you have that's, we're going to continue to straighten teeth that leads to world peace or whatever it might be. It's just, you're going to come in and people are going to feel and experience. And I know you talk about building your brand and you're like, the best person to talk to about this, but it's at the end of the day, it's the impression that you make on the people. And it's like the 10, the 15, the 30-minute experience that they have in your office that they're going to remember you for.
Yes.
Yep. That's just,
I love that. It's that authenticity. And I really believe that's what people are looking for out of a brand and out of an interaction and out of an experience is something authentic. And Grant, of course, I follow what you do. And one of the things that I love, and I'm like, that is so him, is I think you even have a t-shirt or a hat. It's like it's a camo. That's what I'm talking about. It's like a camo hat. With,
right.
Like, it's so you though, right? Like,
Yep.
it's, what it embraces your community. It embraces your outdoor lifestyle. And I think that is what people interact with, and they can, whether they're into hunting or fishing or not, they're still going to be like, okay, that's authentic. That's real. And
that's genuine. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Versus if you were coming in with I saw this at a group in California and I'm going to try and make this work here in Illinois. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't, it wouldn't work very well. Right. So I love that.
Yeah. I heard this deal the other day that you need other people to be successful. And that's so true, because you could be the world's best wire bender. You could be the world's best orthodontist. You could come up with the best treatment plan. But if people don't have that feeling where they can relate and they want to be there in your practice, success just doesn't come from treating people unfairly. You're going to get what you give. And it's just, you have to have that connection, and those people have to feel that genuine experience, because the kinder you are, I just really feel like the more you're going to get back.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about what you've learned in the last couple of years, just with owning your practice. And of course, like you said, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. But have you had any of those humbling moments, or where you've been like, I'll learn from this one? What do you do to stay grounded as you're continuing to learn?
Yeah, we've already touched on this, but I really think that the most humbling thing that's happened through me is when my deal fell through, right? Because you go through so much schooling and all these academics, and you get these academic awards and all these orthodontists, top 3 of their dental school class, and you get accepted into a residency and you finish residency and you're like, okay, I got it. You know what I mean? And then you get terminated, right? I got terminated 6 months into my first real big boy job. And I'm just like, oh no, like I thought I had this whole beautiful thing going on. And it really taught me, no matter how much school you go to or what sort of plans you have made, you're not really entitled to anything. You know what I mean? So it really, my dad says this, but that's what you learned after you thought you knew everything that really mattered. And I thought I knew everything. I thought I had everything down. I had finished 20 orthodontic cases, so I knew everything there was in the world about at that point in time. But I learned so much more after my deal fell through about just strapping up my boots and putting in the hard work. And you just, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words, but it's just, once you go through that whole experience, you cherish it much more, knowing that you created this office, you created this team, you're responsible for the care that you're providing. I value that so much more than a practice that I would have just walked into and purchased and trying to fill those shoes or wear the same shoes as the other guy because he did it this way. Yeah, I guess that's,
yeah. And I got to bet in retrospect, looking backwards and looking at the path that you had with the associateship job that was going to lead into ownership, or doing the startup, now that you can see both paths, where would you say, I'm so glad it actually worked out, I had to go through do the hard work to get to the startup? Or do you still have a little bit of that, but it just would have been so much easier if I...
Right. It's almost laughable looking back now that how fortunate I am. I think it was a blessing that the deal fell through, right? And it's talking to my pastor about it. This is a God's way is the best way. And when my deal fell through, I was like, oh my gosh. Being an orthodontist, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get these straight A's. You're in control of everything. You get into the residency program. You put in the hard work. You find the job. You get the deal done. And you're making all these plans, right? And when it fell through, I'm like, oh my, this is out of my control. This is out of my hands. Like, I just have to pivot, like we talked about, and let these pieces fall together. I get this call from a general dentist telling me his building's available, and it just went from there.
And I'm going to bet now, because we've talked about this, but I just want to hear it. Like, feeling pretty good about a startup?
Yeah, I would. We were talking about this a little bit before, but orthodontics has this past to where it used to be, okay, find a senior doc after school that's nearing retirement, work with them for a little bit, see how they do it. And eventually you work your way to partnership and then potentially ownership. I would recommend everybody do a startup if feasible, if it's something that you think that you're interested in, because it's so rewarding knowing that you put every system into place and exactly what's going on. I also think that there's a ton to be learned in an associateship, right? Because you have to get a job while you're doing a startup. There's lots of jobs out there, especially with a lot of this private equity, these big corporations and stuff like that. And I was devastated when my job fell through, but running a practice for 18 months before I had to run my own practice, it taught me a lot of how to manage expectations and manage staff. And this treatment plan didn't work so well, and this one worked out a lot better. It's like you're making, I don't want to sound bad, but you're making those errors on somebody else's time. And it's not that you're doing it intentionally, but you're always learning, right? You're actively learning. You keep learning. And that's one of the things that's just super important. A lot of my ideas or a lot of my things, I learn a lot from other people, right? Whether it's YouTube or colleagues or something like that. I just learn from my mistakes and try not to repeat them. One of the toughest spots I would say about a startup is that, of course, you're the only doctor. And so you have to have that network of colleagues or friends or ortho residents, that you, and ask them about cases, right? If you have a tough one that you're stuck on, talk to somebody, because I know that at these partnerships or these associateships, there's multiple doctors in the practice at the same day. And so they're always having these high level orthodontic conversations, and they're talking about all sorts of self measurements and treatment plans and everything like that. And here I am just chatting back and forth with my assistants and my TC, you know what I mean? And so I'm not like ever diving into the weeds, right? So sometimes those high level conversations with colleagues can be so beneficial to learn from. So just never stop learning. And if you're doubting yourself, just ask a colleague, right? Because 99% of orthodontists are just going to be so helpful, and that they want to give you your opinion too, because everybody has a different way to put the puzzle together and the treatment plans, and you can learn so much with open ears. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And that is really great advice, because I do think it can be really easy to silo yourself, especially in a startup, and block yourself off. It feels a little scary to talk about your inadequacies. I don't know this answer, but I also don't want to put it out there because I don't want people to know I don't know the answer. And I love the idea from a clinical efficiency standpoint. Get into those study groups, get into just those safe spaces. And I don't necessarily think it always needs to be an open forum on Facebook,
Right.
but get into some of those safe spaces where you can lean on colleagues, trusted people for that, because it does help you. And I think also and I'm sure you lean on your peers too from a business standpoint, like working with a consultant is great, but there are still things that just come up as a business owner. And it's nice to be able to have a safe space to ask questions and not feel like you're going to get ripped down in a big group too. So I love that you took that to heart and put yourself in there. And that's something I would encourage anybody who's listening. If you are doing a startup or you're in those early stages and feeling a little bit siloed, or you're in a place where you just feel super alone, take the opportunity to see if you can cultivate a little study group or whatnot.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree. And it's funny too, because looking back on it with my family's business history, I have all this business background. They run large retail stores, and they don't know anything about an orthodontic practice, and our overhead and our supplies and everything is completely different. And so I go from And now I'm a landlord too. It's one of those things where I'm just, so it's like, I thought I had a business background, having those conversations and sitting around the table with my dad and my grandfather, and it's completely different. So get in with the people that have been there and find orthodontists that you look up to, and get on the Facebook groups and the YouTube channels and things like that, and learn from the people that have been there.
Yeah. I love that. So you have a few favorite mantras that you like, and I love these. Aggressive patience, be a pro, win the day. Break those down for us and how they've shaped how you show up as a leader.
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, I didn't come up with any of these. These are stuff that I've stolen from the internet or people that I look up to. But aggressive patience, I think that's super important as a startup. I call it let the cake bake.
I love that.
And the whole aspect is that time is so essential to success with a startup. And I compare it to, like, you have your grandma's recipe from the world's best chocolate chip cookies, right? And you mix all the ingredients together, and it says you're going to cook them at 350 degrees for 12 minutes. And you're like, man, I want one of these cookies so fast, and I can't wait the 12 minutes. You're going to cook it at 700 degrees for 6 minutes. You're going to have some really burnt cookies that are going to go directly into the trash, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, you have to follow the recipe. You have to let time run its course. And if Jill Allen and Associates give you the perfect recipe for a startup, you have to let time run its course, because it's going to take a little while for people to get familiar with your practice and for your branding to get out there and for people to figure out who you are. And as bad as we want to get a bunch of starts the first month and collect millions of dollars, good things take time.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
And I don't want to say be passive, right? You can't just open your doors and then twiddle your thumbs or sit on social media or something like that. You don't want to sit on your hands, but time is a crucial aspect. So you just have to baby steps, right? And at time, I was super fortunate that my practice year one did really well, and we grew quickly. But those days that aren't busy allow you to better your systems. So you're constantly tweaking things where it's like, frankly, if we would have gone much faster, I would have been drowning, I think, because it lets us say, okay, this isn't working very well, or we need more appointment time for this period, or the doctor times here versus here. And how can we make this be more efficient? As much as we want to go forward and do all these starts and collect all this money, time is a crucial aspect. Yep. So as far as be a pro, this is just accountability and hold yourself at a super high level. Constantly ask yourself, how would a pro handle the situation? Especially as a young orthodontist, a startup orthodontist, it's like you're sitting there scratching your head like, okay, what would doctors do? Or maybe a good mentor from your residency or something like that. Yep. And just ask yourself, is this going to benefit your goals? Is this going to benefit your team? Is this going to benefit your patients? And if it's not going to, then don't do that. But it's one of those things that comes back to branding. It's like everything you say, everything you do, it represents you. It represents your office. It represents your brand. It represents your team. So you just have to stay on top of things. And it might not be, sometimes orthodontists may get into the habit of, just check rubber bands or just change power chain and see them back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something. Maybe we need to move a bracket around. Maybe we need to drop back into night time. Maybe we should bond the sevens. Maybe the space isn't closing and we need to try another method. Or maybe the impacted canine isn't moving, so now we got to go from elastic thread to a Kilroy spring, or whatever you might use. You know what I mean? It's like you just have to reassess. You may have to admit that the treatment plan wasn't great and just handle it like a professional.
Yeah.
Be a pro.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. That's great.
So the last one you asked me about, win the day. Yep. That's just, it's easy, but if you have a setback in the morning, don't let it ruin your day, right? Just step back out there with a positive attitude and win the day. If you had a grumpy patient, don't let them take the day from you. Go above and beyond in the afternoon and try to make those patients feel extra special. Go home and be super mom or super dad or super wife or super husband or whatever it may be. It's like when you lay down at the end of the day, make sure you have a W on your chart, right? That's what you want. Yeah.
I love that. And I think especially from a team's perspective, when they see you as their doctor, their leader, leading the charge for this, they're going to naturally do that too. And I think that's the piece, just like being a parent, for anybody who's parents out there. Eyes are always watching. You don't
Yep.
even realize that they're watching, but they are always watching. And I think just keeping that, did I win the day? I love that idea. When I lay down, do I have a W for the day? And yes, we may have a day where we didn't, but
Right.
what you hope is at the end of the year, you've had more wins than
Yep.
losses. And I truly believe in turn, your team will follow that. And that is what really builds into true culture within an orthodontic practice. And then it makes it really easy to see too, like who's not right for the team, who's right for the team as
For sure.
you're growing and moving forward. So Grant, for anybody who is listening, who's maybe just getting started and struggling in their first year, if somebody wanted to reach out and just have that, I just need a pep talk, and what would be the best way that they could connect with you if they wanted to just reach out and maybe get a little advice or something?
Yeah, my personal email, grantsievers@gmail.com. Pretty easy. I'm also on Facebook as Grant Sievers or Sievers Orthodontics. Those are all pretty easy ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome.
And I'm happy to help too. I need everybody to know that I'm still learning, right? We're all still learning. So we just got to work together and work as a team.
Yes, I love that. And I appreciate you just putting it out there, because I think sometimes you just need to hear from somebody else. Like, it's okay. You got this. We're all learning. You know how I like to finish up Hey Docs. I like to finish it up with a nice speed round. So are you ready for the speed round?
I think I'm ready. Yep, I'll give it my best.
All right, here we go. What is one daily habit or ritual that helps you stay productive or balanced?
Yeah, so something I like to do, like early morning walks, right? Like 5:30. I'm not one of the guys that can stick to a super aggressive routine, right? Like every heavy lifting workouts or something like that. But if I can get out at 5:30 and walk outdoors, I love that. I just start a podcast or whatever it may be, and it's a good way to ease into the day. And then I come home and I have a cup of coffee with my wife and watch our daughter before I have to rush off to work. So it's just a really good, easy way to slide into the day.
I love that. What is your go-to strategy for getting unstuck when you have a problem?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but I think communication is key. If it's a problem at home, communicate with my wife. If it's a problem at the office, communicate with my team. I think all my team would tell you that I'm an open book. You can call me, you can text me, we can chat anytime. I'm not super strict about this is my way and we have to do it this way. If somebody has a better way to do it, I'm all ears, and I would love to streamline things and make it more efficient.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What is one piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career?
You won't regret the cases that you choose not to start.
Oh, that's such a good one. I like that one. That's really good. All right. And then to finish it up, what is one business idea you've seen recently you wish you had thought of?
Okay, so I think I'm a little late to the game on this one, but for Father's Day, my wife got her dad one of those coffee mugs that keeps your coffee at a certain temperature or whatever. And I'm like, okay,
I think
yeah. So I'm like, because that's what happens. Like in the morning, I'll bring coffee, and then you run around back and forth to the chairs all the time. And then by the time I like get back to my desk and sit down and sip my coffee, I'm like, oh, cold coffee.
Yes.
So it's that was a great idea.
Yes. Maybe there's a future Father's Day present in your future.
Yeah.
Grant, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Hey Docs with me and just being authentic and vulnerable to share your experience with the listeners. I know somebody out there has been like, this is exactly what I needed to hear.
Awesome.
I think a lot of people have went through what you went through, and I think it's just good to hear, like, you can do it. You've got it. So thanks again for being on.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks again. I'm truly humbled and grateful you asked me to be on. It's a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. All right. See
you later. Take care.
Thanks.